America's boating history is filled with brands that rose fast and vanished even faster. Although we assume poor quality killed them, the truth is much stranger. Market shifts, bad timing, and unexpected twists shape their fate. And these stories reveal what really matters when choosing a boat today. Renken was the kind of brand every American marina had at least one of. Usually sun-faded, slightly crooked on the trailer, and owned by a guy who swore it ran perfect last summer. Founded in 1959, Renken built affordable family runabouts, but affordability came with compromises. Their hulls were light, their interiors were basic, and their longevity depended heavily on whether you kept the boat covered. Many didn't, and that's why half the used Renkens you see today look like they've survived 3 hurricanes and a divorce. But the real issue was competition. As brands like Bayliner, Sea Ray, and Glastron stepped up with flashier designs and better performance, Renken couldn't keep up. By 1995, the company shut down, leaving behind an army of budget boats that still pop up on Craigslist for $900 OBO. Needs carb work. Renken didn't stand the test of time, but it definitely stood the test of memes. Sunbird always felt like the middle child of the OMC family. Not as famous as Chris Craft, not as sporty as Four Winds, but definitely trying its best. Built under the Outboard Marine Corporation umbrella, Sunbird focused on value-priced bow riders and small cuddy cabins, boats aimed at families who wanted fun on the water without remortgaging the house. The problem? OMC spread itself too thin. Engines, boats, multiple brands. It was like they were collecting debt the way some people collect fridge magnets. Sunbird hulls were decent, but they suffered from quality inconsistency. Some boats lasted decades, others lasted until the warranty ran out, and then quietly disintegrated, like a Thanos snap. When OMC collapsed in 2000, Sunbird went down with the ship. It didn't stand the test of time, but if you ever rode in one in the 90s, you probably still remember the smell of two-stroke and sunscreen. If you're enjoying this so far, hit subscribe and drop a like to keep the series going. You don't want to miss what's next. Now let's move on. Galaxy Boats is one of those brands that feels like a Mandela effect memory. Everyone vaguely remembers them, nobody remembers owning one, and yet thousands existed. Built in South Carolina, Galaxy produced affordable fiberglass runabouts for budget-conscious families. The boats weren't terrible, they were just there. Kind of like the automotive equivalent of a beige 1992 Toyota Corolla. Reliable enough to function, but not exciting enough to save when the industry got competitive. Their biggest problem was identity. Galaxy never had a signature hull, a standout model, or anything that separated them from the pack. And when the 80s and 90s introduced cheaper imports and flashier American designs, Galaxy simply couldn't keep pace. By the mid-90s, the brand faded away quietly. No big scandal, no dramatic bankruptcy, just a slow disappearance. Galaxy didn't stand the test of time, but hey, at least they left behind some great Craigslist listings titled "Runs, but Bring Jumper Cables." Imperial boats were the definition of looks nice from 20 feet away. Built under All Seasons Industries, they produced runabouts and small cruisers that were stylish enough on the showroom floor. But once they hit the water, reality set in. Let's just say the gel coat aged about as gracefully as milk in the sun. Their build quality was hit or miss, and owners often found themselves bonding with their boats through constant repairs. Soft floors, stringer issues, and hull rot became frequent guests in the Imperial ownership experience. The real downfall came when consumer expectations rose. As brands like Sea Ray, Regal, and Four Winds refined their designs, Imperial couldn't match the performance or finish buyers wanted more than good enough, and the brand slowly vanished from marinas. Imperial didn't stand the test of time, but plenty of their old brochures still look fantastic. Maxim was Brunswick's attempt to create a sportier, cooler alternative to Bayliner, like giving Bayliner a leather jacket and sunglasses. And for a while, it worked. Maxim built stylish runabouts and cruisers with sleek lines and strong value for money. But Brunswick already owned Sea Ray, Bayliner, Boston Whaler, and half the boating universe. Something had to give. In 2009, after the recession hammered boat sales, Brunswick cut the Maxim brand entirely so they could focus on higher margin lines. It wasn't that Maxim boats were bad, they just didn't have a unique space in Brunswick's crowded family tree, and once the company realized they could sell more Bayliners to entry-level buyers and more Sea Rays to luxury buyers, Maxim became the middle child no one wanted to keep. Maxim didn't stand the test of time, but owners still brag about how good they looked on the water. Stratos was once a respected busboat name. Fast hulls, decent construction, and backed by some big tournament pros. But when Bass Pro's White River Marine Group bought the brand, things eventually changed. Instead of expanding Stratos, White River stacked it on a shelf behind Nitro and Triton. Those two brands were selling better, and Stratos slowly became the kid nobody picked for the team. Production faded, models disappeared from brochures, and eventually the brand went silent. Stratos boats themselves, solid performers. They rode well, they fished well, and they had a loyal following. Their only crime was being the third base boat brand in a company that only needed two. Stratos didn't stand the test of time, but you'll still see them screaming across lakes, usually with owners who refuse to upgrade, because in their words, this one still outruns half the new stuff. Champion was legendary in the base world for one thing, their ride. These hulls sliced through rough water like they were cheating. Physics anglers swore by them, and many still do. But great boats don't always mean great business. Ownership changes, shifting markets, and eventually the Genmar collapse threw Champion into chaos. The brand bounced between owners like a hot potato, and every transition chipped away at its identity. When White River finally took over, Champion models were slowly absorbed into Stratos and later Triton. The name disappeared, even though parts of its hull DNA lived on. Champion didn't stand the test of time, but it definitely left a cult following behind. Some anglers still refuse to drive anything else, even if they have to rebuild the entire boat from scratch. ProCraft was Bass Pro's budget but not too budget fishing brand, priced for weekend warriors who wanted a proper fiberglass boat without needing to sell a kidney. For years, they delivered exactly that. Solid hulls, simple layouts, and enough performance to make you feel fast if you squinted hard enough. But once White River Marine Group absorbed more brands, ProCraft became redundant. Nitro was the hot-selling favorite, Tracker had the aluminum crowd locked down, and Procraft ended up somewhere in the corporate attic gathering dust. Quality wasn't the issue here. Identity was. Procraft boats were good, just not special enough to justify keeping the line alive. Eventually, Bass Pro quietly phased them out, and buyers moved on without fuss. Procraft didn't stand the test of time, but you'll still find old-timers bragging, "Mine rides better than any new Nitro." Every lake has at least one guy who says that. Javelin was OMC's attempt to create a sportier, edgier base boat brand, basically Stratos' younger, wilder sibling. They looked great, they ran fast, and they were priced aggressively. For a few glorious years, they were everywhere on southern lakes. Then came the OMC collapse in 2000, and everything went down with it. Engines, finances, and all the brands attached. Javelin was folded into Stratos, and eventually the name was erased entirely. The boats themselves, surprisingly fun, lightweight, quick, and built for anglers who wanted to look fast even when they were idling through a no-wake zone, but without a company behind them. The brand simply evaporated. Javelin didn't stand the test of time, but you'll still see pristine ones at boat ramps, usually owned by guys who treat them like museum pieces. Thompson Boats was one of America's oldest wooden boat builders, founded back in 1904. Yes, 1904. These were handcrafted family cruisers long before fiberglass took over. They had history, heritage, and craftsmanship that modern brands can't fake. But the wooden boat era eventually ended, and Thompson struggled to adapt. Fiberglass competitors could produce boats faster, cheaper, and with less maintenance. Thompson tried to modernize, but the shift came too late. By the late 80s and early 90s, financial pressure mounted, ownership shuffled, and the legendary name faded out. Today, you'll occasionally spot an old Thompson restored beautifully, gleaming like a time capsule. Thompson didn't stand the test of time, but their wooden classics absolutely did. Just not the company behind them. Silverline was a Minnesota builder that cranked out affordable family runabouts, tri-hulls, and small cruisers during the 60s, 70s, and 80s. If you've ever walked past a dusty old boat in a barn and thought, "That looks sorta cool," there's a good chance it was a Silverline. The boats were known for flashy gel coat colors, fun styling, and decent performance. But the company expanded too fast, hit financial trouble, and eventually shut down in the early 80s. The era of budget fiberglass boats was brutally competitive, and Silverline couldn't keep pace. Their designs aged better than their business plan, though. Many Silverlines still run today, and half of them are owned by guys proudly shouting, "She's a 79, still original." Silverline didn't stand the test of time, but their retro look is now unintentionally kind of cool. Hydrostream was the rebellious teenager of the boating world, lightweight, ridiculously fast, and built for people who thought speed limits were suggestions. In the 70s and 80s, these boats dominated lakes across America with their wild metal flake gel coat and jaw-dropping performance. But being fast came with a price. Those ultralight hulls relied heavily on balsa cores, and if owners didn't baby them, water intrusion turned them into soggy sandwiches. Many Hydrostreams aged like bananas, left in a hot car. The company itself suffered from quality control swings, financial issues, and eventually collapsed in the early 90s. Later revivals tried, but none captured the original magic. Hydrostream didn't stand the test of time, but their reputation did. Today, they're cult collectibles, usually owned by someone who says, "Yeah, she'll do 90, if you're brave enough." Chrysler once tried to become a boating giant. Engines, boats, outboards, everything. It was peak 1970s confidence. We build cars, so how hard can boats be? Spoiler, harder than they expected. Their boats were affordable and everywhere, from family runabouts to small sailboats. But Chrysler's marine division constantly battled cost-cutting, inconsistent quality, and a growing list of competitors offering better performance and more refinement. By 1980, financial pressure forced Chrysler to sell the entire marine operation. The boat line was discontinued, and the outboard division went to Force, another name that didn't exactly age gracefully. Chrysler boats didn't stand the test of time, but they left behind a legacy of quirky classics. If you see one today, it's either restored beautifully or sitting in a backyard with a tree growing through it. Larson was once a powerhouse, founded in 1913, producing everything from runabouts to sporty cruisers. For decades, they were a go-to American manufacturer. Solid value, good styling, and a loyal fan base kept them thriving. But the modern boat market changed fast. Competition tightened, margins shrank, and fiberglass production became brutally expensive. When Polaris acquired Larson, many hoped for a big comeback, but instead, Polaris pulled the plug in 2019. It wasn't that Larson made bad boats, they simply couldn't compete in an industry where even big names struggle. Rising costs and shrinking demand sealed their fate. Larson didn't stand the test of time, but their older models are still common on lakes, usually running strong while their owners swear they don't build them like this anymore. Carver was the blue-collar hero of American motor yachts. Big interiors, boxy silhouettes, and enough headroom for people over 6 feet tall. Their boats weren't flashy, but they were comfortable, practical, and built like floating condos. Unfortunately, the luxury yacht world evolved faster than Carver did. European styling, sleeker lines, and advanced materials pushed the market forward. Carver stuck to the floating apartment look a little too long. When the Pulaski, Wisconsin facility shut down in 2021, it marked the end of an era. Carver owners still adore their boats, but the brand couldn't survive modern competition and changing tastes. Carver didn't stand the test of time, but their boats are still beloved by owners who value space more than speed. And honestly, those interiors were huge. Marquis was Carver's more luxurious sibling, the brand meant to compete with European-styled cruisers and motor yachts. And for a while, they absolutely did. Sleek lines, upscale interiors, and impressive build quality helped Marquis stand out in a crowded market. But luxury boating is a brutal game. The global financial crisis hit big boat builders hard, and competition from Italy and Scandinavia only intensified. Marquis struggled to keep sales flowing, and with limited new models coming out, momentum slowed. When the Pulaski facility closed in 2021, Marquis went down with Carver. It wasn't a failure of design. It was a failure of timing, market shifts, and the staggering cost of building luxury yachts in the U.S. Marquis didn't stand the test of time, but their yachts still look stunning today. If you see one at a marina, chances are the owner treats it like a floating jewelry box. OMC didn't just build outboards, they built boats. Lots of boats. At one point, brands like Chris Craft, Four Winds, Sea Swirl, and Sunbird were all under the OMC umbrella. It was a massive empire built on horsepower and debt. As the 90s rolled in, OMC struggled with failing outboards, warranty nightmares, and fierce competition. Their finances spiraled. Instead of fixing the engine issues first, they kept pouring money into boat production. It was like trying to renovate the living room while the house was on fire. When OMC went bankrupt in 2000, the recreational boat group collapsed with it. Most brands were sold off, split up, or shut down entirely. OMC didn't stand the test of time, but the story is legendary. It's still remembered as one of the biggest too big to fail, but still failed moments in boating history. Trojan Yachts was an East Coast icon, sleek sport fishermen, sturdy cruisers, and a loyal following. Their F-Series boats in the 70s and 80s were especially beloved, combining solid construction with a classic look that aged well. But as the market shifted toward higher performance sport fishers and modern composite construction, Trojan struggled to keep pace. Financial issues mounted, ownership changed hands, and by the early 1990s, the brand faded out. Trojan didn't necessarily make bad boats. They just couldn't evolve quickly enough. Classic designs became outdated, and competitors were innovating faster than Trojan could react. Trojan didn't stand the test of time, but their older models remain cult favorites. Seeing one today feels like spotting a vintage muscle car on the water, nostalgic, charming, and built with real character. Pacemaker was part of the golden era of New Jersey sport fishing boats, big, tough, offshore-ready hulls that could handle serious water. In the 60s and 70s, they were everywhere from Miami to Montauk. But as companies like Bertram, Hatteras, and Viking surged forward with modern construction and faster, more efficient hulls, Pacemaker lagged behind. Their designs stayed traditional, while the competition got sleeker, lighter, and more powerful. Ownership shuffled multiple times, financial problems grew, and by the late 80s, the company shut its doors. The boats themselves, many are still cruising today, often lovingly restored by enthusiasts. Pacemaker didn't stand the test of time, but they left behind some timeless hull shapes, and that's more than some failed builders can say. Ocean Yachts was another New Jersey powerhouse, fast, stylish, and known for lighter-weight sport fishing boats that could outrun half the competition. Their ocean speed reputation was real, and owners loved it. But lighter construction came with trade-offs, and critics argued that ocean boats weren't as rugged as Viking or Hatteras. As the industry leaned toward heavier, more premium builds, Ocean's niche began to shrink. By 2009, the recession hammered big boat sales, and Ocean shut down production. A brief attempt at revival followed, but it never recaptured its peak. Ocean Yachts didn't stand the test of time, but their old convertibles still turn heads, especially when they blast past you, doing 30 knots like it's nothing. These vanished boat brands show how quickly the industry can rise and fall, and why their stories still matter today. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit subscribe, drop a like, and tell me which forgotten manufacturer you want next. Your support helps bring more hidden boating history back to life.